Hello again everyone, welcome back. With the release of Clockwork Ballet, a new trait was released. This time, it was for Carino and Zealot of War to join the ranks of playable characters in Torchlight. Zealot of War is an incredibly strong offensive trait that gains massive benefits for every single projectile that you add to your skill. On today's build guide, I'll be providing you with my take on the very popular Ring of Blades Carino. A build capable of doing tremendous amounts of damage with minimal investment, while still having the ability to scale into billions and billions of damage with the proper amount of FE put into your character. If you are looking into a build that you can invest heavily and that will keep rewarding you with more and more power, then this build will definitely serve you very well. Very quickly, I'm trying to get the channel monetized, so I would really appreciate if you could subscribe. I have tons of content on Torchlight that you might enjoy, as well as other ARPGs like Path of Exile, Last Epoch, and Diablo. Hello again everyone. So, having a quick look at our character here, as you can see, we are level 93, we have capped resistance on all elemental and decent erosion resistance, we have 10k energy shield, and 2k life, but that doesn't really matter for our setup. So for our gear, firstly on the helmet we use a blind vision. This one is particularly bad because I was trying to get enough area effect so you could overlap the blades in the middle, but in the end it requires a lot more investment than I have put into the character, and I'm not entirely certain if that's better or not than just getting all the stats, right, and ignoring the area of effect to have them overlap in the middle. If ever anybody has managed to do that, let me know the results on that, because I would think if all the blades overlap in the middle, it's going to do a lot of damage and it's going to be super powerful, but unfortunately I couldn't do that, and instead I went in a different direction. So here we have blind vision optimally. If you can, you want to get a corruption on this mod here for projectile speed to apply even further, and the stats here that you really want to get would be crit strike, area of effect, area damage is very good, projectile speed is very good. I believe you can get int as well, if I remember correctly. You can potentially get int here. Yeah, you could get intelligence, which is very good because it's going to scale our skill. Area damage, elemental damage are both very decent. And on the suffixes, crit damage, projectile speed are also very good. So that's probably what you want to aim to get in your blind vision. On the chest, we have a cicada shell. This is the same I used in a different character for the tornado gem that I done a while ago. And is very, very good, and it makes all of these builds function with energy shield stacking. This one has a particularly good corruption on the max energy shield and life, and we care a little bit about life. It's not a major focus, but it's good enough to have, and that's why we went with max life and energy shield. On the amulet here, this is very unoptimized because it's only a 2 legendary aptitude 1. You could get a third one, and optimally the third mod that you would get with this amulet would be something like either +1 level of physical or spell levels, or +1 max channel stacks. Other than that, this is a very good amulet. It makes so every 2.3 seconds the next main skill is guaranteed to deal a critical strike, and because this is a channel skill, what it will make is that as long as you are channeling and as long as the skill lasts, all of its hits are going to be critical strikes. So it's very, very good for channel skills like this. On the gloves, very simple gloves, you can get better than this. We have a dead mod here in critical strike rating, but you want as much energy shield as you can. Intelligence is very good, crit damage is very good, you can get +1 level to spells here, which would further increase our damage by a lot. And if you need any resistance to cap out your resistance, as you can see, we're not super overcapped, so you still need a bit of resistance on your gear.
Justice might come late, but it will never be absent.
Thank you, Carino. On our belt, here we use a Light Hunter belt, very standard for energy stacking builds. This essentially means that we don't have to worry about energy shield recharge, because it will recharge on its own. And on top of that, it converts a large portion of our life into energy shield for further scaling that. In here, we don't have massively good crafted mods here. We have energy shield, which is good. We have erosion damage, which is quite nice to give us a little buffer to erosion damage. And the mana regen speed actually is just a dead mod. Optimally here, you could get something like penetration to elemental resistance, which would be a very good stat to get. On our boots here, we have a decent pair of boots actually. We have energy shield, very high. We have movement speed, erosion resistance, and aura effect. There's not much more that you could get here instead. If we go to the affix list here, you can see that you could get potentially elemental damage, but that's really about it, or potentially intelligence, that as well. Other than that, you can get deflection for further defensives if you wish, but that's about it. Nothing else really springs to mind. These boots are pretty good, and obviously you will want movement speed as high as you can possibly get, because movement speed will just make everything more fluid, you'll farm faster, you'll get more gear, and you know, just makes things work better. On the rings here, these were both crafted by me. I bought the bases for skill area on both of these. They're quite good. They're not amazing, but they're quite good. This one has a dead mod in the affliction modifier there, but other than that, it's very good. I got lucky and crafted tier 0 max energy shield and just left it there. The flat damage to attacks and spells is decent. The AoE, it's decent. You don't need as much AoE as I have on my gear, as I said, but you could replace that with something potentially more valuable for our setup here. If we go to suffixes, you can see that you could potentially get further resistance if you need them. You can get crit damage, you can get hybrid resistance as well. So there's a couple of things that you could potentially get. Cast speed is pretty good. It allows us to get closer to our max damage faster. But don't invest too much into it, because it also comes with a negative, which we'll talk about when we talk about the traits themselves.
It's my duty to
Our other ring, again, same thing. ES, spell damage, crit damage, area of effect, and resistance. Very standard. And now for our weapons. Both of these are not amazing, I'll say it right away. This one is only 2 legendary aptitude, but on both of them, perfect weapons would be plus projectile quantity, plus levels of projectiles or physical, and the additional projectile damage modifier, which will come with additional projectile speed negative, but it's still a very big multiplier for us. If you can't get that, crit damage is good. Just to list off a bunch of modifiers that you can get there are good. Projectile damage, intelligence, projectile speed, crit damage, plus level to physical. And I think that's it. Projectile quantity, obviously I mentioned that. Projectile skill level, again, very good. Additional damage applied to life is good as well. It's not amazing. And chance to deal double damage is good, not amazing. So those are the ones that you want to look out for on your weapons, which will be both Twisted Branches, because projectile quantity on the implicit is amazing, and the decrease to skill area also applies to projectile speed. Is very good. It gives us a reason to stack the skill areas as said, but also very importantly, it transforms that in projectile speed, and we are transforming projectile speed into damage through our blind vision. So all of these uniques make the build function in conjunction and are very important, and honestly I would not replace any of these. Looking at our skills here, as you can see, we are rocking Ring of Blades, and we use both GMP and LMP. Ring of Blades gains a lot of benefit for every projectile that we have. and the skill area is going to further be enhanced into damage by the setup in gear that I mentioned previously. And other than that, you use increased AoE, once again skill area, guard to give us barrier but also additional damage, and crit strike damage. On our defensive skill, you can both use Stone Skin, some people use defensive buffer. As you can see, the build that I'm using, or I used to level, recommends using defensive buffer instead, and if you have tenacity blessings, it's a very, very good setup to go for. I don't in my current setup. You can get that through slates, but I didn't have one of those, and they are somewhat expensive, and I was not interested in investing that. That's much further investment that you can potentially do and Minimax this build into the stratosphere. It has trillions of damage that you can get with this, so if you're looking to go even further, that's something that can go. If not, Stone Skin does a decent enough job. On your curse of choice, you can potentially get this on a ring and use this for something like Blurry Steps to go even further, to go even quicker, but I opted to go with Elemental Destruction in the end. I did try Blurry Steps for quite a long time, but the value of the curse is just so high, it's unreal. And you link it to the usual stuff: Extended Duration, Abysmal Hatred, and Terrain of Malice. Here I have Fixate only linked to Mania, which is a mistake. You are optimally going to link this to Mass Effect, because it also gives you effect for the status. And you can link it to either Self-Sacrifice when fighting bosses, which is very, very good. Otherwise, Well-Fought Battle is my go-to, usually. And finally, we have Archery Bond, which is linked to Mania, and increased area of effect just to make it easier to stand inside of it. For our auras, we are going to be using Precise Projectiles, Elemental Amplification, Energy Fortress. All of these are going to be in our own mana, and all of them are going to be linked to our Amplification and stand as one. Energy Fortress I opted to link to Selfishness, and I opted to go with Selfishness because, or I opted to put Selfishness in Energy Fortress rather than any of the other two, because Energy Fortress will work as both damage, thanks to our Cicada Shell chess piece, and defensive, because it's Energy Shield. Lastly, I have Elemental Resistance linked to Seal Conversion and Aura Amplification, and you can potentially link this to another thing if you wish to, like Selfishness, for example, to even reduce the need to have resistances on your gear. Having a look at our traits here, essentially the way it functions can be boiled down to: you want to get as many projectile quantity as possible, because this means we're gonna get more magazine capacity, and more magazine capacity means you're going to do more damage. It's essentially how it goes. Very simple. You also have two modes in your trait. One of them is called Mobile, the other is Annihilator, and essentially see Mobile as clear, Annihilator as single target. Very simple, very straightforward. Looking at our traits here, Incinerated Glory and Blank Shots are mandatory, and you can do anything about that. Essentially what they do, Incinerating Glory is going to give you a lot of movement speed while in clear mode, and projectile deviation, which doesn't really matter for us, but more importantly, additional damage for every stack of ETAP, and you gain 1 every time you consume ammo. On our blank shots, essentially means that even after finishing our ammo, we can still continue firing or continue using our skill, and this will give us overheat, and overheat stacks are going to increase our damage as well by a generous amount. On our level 45 option, I opted to go with Shackles of Mania. Essentially means we no longer reload every time we swap between clear mode and single target mode, and it gives us Cull, essentially, is what it boils down to. On our 75 option, I opted to go with Ceasefire, which means whenever we have more overheated stacks, which are the ones from using blank shots, then heat up stacks, which are the ones that you get normally by consuming ammo, we lose one overheat stack every time we move, or for every 1 meter of movement we make, which is almost every time. And for every stack of overheated that we lost recently, we gain 1% additional damage, up to 100% additional damage. On our 90 option, we have both of them due to this trait or to this memory, but we'll talk about that in a second. Essentially, we pick Eternal Flames, and when we have as many or more overheated stacks as heat up stacks, for every stack of heat up that we have, we do 2% additional damage when landing a critical strike, up to 200%. Essentially means that we want to get our ammo to 100, or as close to as possible. Going over doesn't really mean anything, so we only want to really go up to 100. Also, let's talk about Endless Frenzy, because we are getting it through this memory. Essentially, for every 2% knockback distance, we gain a 1% additional damage up to 200, and during mobile mode, we are guaranteed to knock back ourselves when casting something, and in Annihilation mode, damage mode, essentially, heat up gains an additional effect of knockback distance plus 1 per heat up stack. So we are going to use both of those, and that's due to this memory, as I was saying, which gives us Endless Frenzy. We are using the prototype version. The non-prototype version costs over 2,000 at the time that I was seeing FE, and it's just not necessary. We're already doing over 200 billion damage, so there's absolutely no need for that. On our relic itself, I opted to go with when having max stacks of heat up will not be lost and ammo will not be reloaded after loading. Essentially means that you're never going back to having to cycle all the way through your ammo, and you start immediately on your blank fire mode. Optimally, you never go into this, but it's here to prevent that if you ever stand still for too long. On the other memories, you want on both of them projectile quantity. As we talked, more projectile quantity means more damage, and we run one of these when having more overheated stacks than heat up stacks. Upon landing a critical strike chance, there is a chance to lose 1 stack of overheat. Essentially means that you never stay over. The amount of overheat stacks is never bigger than heat up, and so it won't reset your overheat stacks, essentially, is how it goes. And other than that, here again, plus 1 projectile, and knockback direction is reversed. This is very good because essentially means that you function like a vacuum and pull enemies towards you, right? Which is very, very, very good. A quick showcase here. I have this reach over 200 billion in the past. We'll see what we can do here, but essentially, as you can, yeah, there you go. 300 billion, very simple, and as you can see, it has reset now because we didn't spend enough stacks. Hopefully, I can get this with a tier 1 mod, and that would be enough, but we'll have to see. At the moment, I'm not able to sustain that, unfortunately. Still, as you can see, there's a lot of min-maxing that can be done if you want to invest even further into the skill and into the build. You can do that very, very comfortably.
I'll need some time.
And yeah, you have billions of damage, literally, and it's very, very comfortable, very, very strong. And this is while using, for reference for all of you, this is using leveling setup for my what's them, pack spirits? Yeah, pack spirits. So as you can see, not much here. You can both use damage ones if you want to just go further into damage, or you can potentially use drop ones for more drops and quality of life. So yeah, for our passives, as you can see, we are using Goddess of the Hunting, Marksman and Ranger. on God of the Hunting. If you want to copy the trees, you can either pause the video and copy it, or you can check the link to the builder down below in the description. For the big nodes, we run Perception and Rushed. No real competition here. On Marksman, this is the tree that we are currently running, and we run Gale. Projectile speed applies to damage, once again very, very good. And 3 birds with 1 stone is a no-brainer. You get projectiles from this, and you get a lot of projectile damage per plus projectiles that we get. So very, very, very solid. And again, once again, no competition for any of the two. Lastly here, we run Shooting Arrows. No competition once again. All of these are very locked in. Knockback distance gives us damage, as well as the additional projectile damage from this. And Impending gives us a lot of additional damage for enemies that are close to us. And this just is always stacked, assuming enemies survive, of course. And this is the tree that we run. For our slates, there's a lot that you can do with this, and I'm not currently running any extra Pedigree of the Gods. Optimally, you'd run a focus one, which will give you, if we check here, focus will give you a lot of max channel stacks, as well as additional damage for every additional max channel stack. But this is very expensive, over 1000 FE each. Minimum. Minimum. So, you can opt to go with something else, and for the ones that I'm running personally is what I would recommend. Plus levels is very, very important, and you want to get as many as you can possibly do. Spell levels are very good. Lightning level here is not doing much, so these are not actually phenomenal. I have 2 of these. Max channel stacks, you want at least a few. I like to go up to 9 at least. It feels very comfortable. That is going to give you AoE, and is going to give you extra projectiles, so that's very good. After that, crit damage is very good. Focus blessings, if you can get it, is also very, very nice. And here, spell damage once again. Max channel stacks. Max channel stack, skill AoE. Max channel stack, and this is actually not important. And max energy shield. So, decent-ish divine slates, but you can get much better than this, and you should get much better than this. You can get focus blessings, tenacity blessing generation, agility blessing generation. You can get something like focus blessing generation on frostbiting and get something that says inflict ailments on crit, and that would be enough to essentially keep you at max focus stacks. And that's probably where I would take these next, because I think getting focus blessings are going to increase your damage by a generous amount, and that's probably what I would recommend. But yeah, levels and channel stacks is your main priority, and after that, blessing generation should be the thing to go. After all of that, energy shield and crit strike damage are good things to get as well. And that is pretty much all I have for you today. Once again, showcasing the damage of the build right now is capable of doing a few billion with when things align, essentially, and you can very comfortably be sitting over 200 billion. As you've seen a second ago, you can reach 300 billion with this setup, and it's not that crazy min-max. You can get a lot more than this, and if you want to invest into it, it's a very, very, very solid build. So, I hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all later. Bye-bye.